Okay, thank you so much, ladies. So, what I'm going to do is, rather than introduce you, I'm going to allow you to just say in one line who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into it.
Hello, everyone. My name's Chisom Jide. I am a risk and compliance manager for Amazon, and that effectively means that I deal with all employment-related obligations when they're launching in new countries or expanding.
Thank you, Chisom. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Zuleika Philips. I guess my LinkedIn title would say award-winning entrepreneur, but I actually carry a few different titles. I'm a founder and CEO of my own organization, but I also have a corporate career, and I run Zoom, which you might know as a video platform across Northern Europe and UK and Ireland.
Good morning, everyone. Let me tell you before I have an intro how pleasant and how inspiring it is to be in a room with so many. Absolutely. Okay. Black History Month is more than just 1 day, 1 hour, 1 month. We need to remember that. My name is Heather Melville. I am currently, and I say currently because I do many things, but what my role at the moment is I'm a partner and senior managing director of a global search consultancy company. I'm also the chair of CMI Women. I'm patron of Women in Banking and Finance, for those of you in finance. And I'm about to become the first ever black chancellor of one of the Russell Group universities. I can't tell you what it is until Monday. I'll have to kill you, but just know it's coming.
Wow, congratulations, by the way. My name's Clare Ashley. I'm a managing director in engineering at Goldman Sachs. I also co-head the Black Engineers Network, and I'm really pleased to be here. And as mentioned, I was in the first Voices in the Shadow book. I'm also a mum, 3 lovely children. That's me.
Thanks so much, ladies. Before we move on to the first question, just a quick reminder about Slido. So if you just want to scan that QR code or go to slido.com and type in 1148577, you'll see a poll question for this panel. We just want to get a bit of a temperature check in the room, find out how people are feeling about their careers, and we'll return to that at the end or midway through the panel. So let's dive right in. First question. So, how would you recommend making the case to your manager for a promotion or a salary increase? And what tools or information do you think that you should prepare? Who wants to take that first?
I guess I'll start. I mean, how do you top what Ellis just did on stage? You pretty much just summarized it. So I'll add to what you said earlier. I think the key thing for me, having been in the Big Four, been an immigration lawyer, and working in a tech environment as a non-tech, one of the themes that I've seen across all these organizations is transparency. And it's linked to, if you don't ask, you don't get. Earlier on in my career, I sort of thought I could plan myself, where I wanted to go. It was all very insular, me and my plans. But very soon after, I realized you have to be open, you have to speak about what you're planning to do. So if you're thinking about moving up or being promoted, you need to air that out, because it generally takes a minimum of a year to get it from your thought to that next role. And you need to understand what that next role actually involves. A lot of us want to get to the next level, but what does that mean on a day-to-day basis? And one of the things that I learned to do was study the job spec. And in being intentional about getting to that next level, I'm using your buzzwords, I literally decided to find an example for every single bullet point on that job spec. And when we talk about building your tribe, like I said, Alyssa said it all. And all I'm doing is giving case studies of what you've already said. Talking about building my tribe, what I will do is figure out who my stakeholders are within my organization. making sure that you're validating the exercises that you're undertaking as the next level. Is it aligned with what your organization understands to be the next level? Because I may think I've done something brilliantly, but actually it's exactly what I'm supposed to be doing for this level. So I think aligning your goals with your organization goals, and that literally translates as when you are engaging in those projects, make sure it's ticking those boxes. A lot I could say, but there's other nuggets of information, so I'll stop there and pass it on.
Thank you, Chisom. I'd like to add 3 things to what you've mentioned there. I think I will lead with data, business, planning, and innovation. Now, there's 2 angles here. There's the angle of, absolutely, I think from a job perspective and applying, I mentor and I talk to individuals and say the exact same thing. Let's look at what that job description looks like and make sure you've got a case study for all of that. The question is then around promotion and building yourself up within the business. When I started at Zoom 2 years ago, and I've been in the tech industry for 20 years, I'm older than I look. But when I first started at Zoom, I was just running the channel across UK and Ireland. And in the space of 12 months, I took on all of Northern Europe. And how I was able to do that was through data and analytics. And if we're looking to go into a tech industry in particular, that is one of the core things people want to know that you understand. It's not just the data of what you're selling, but the data, if it's revenue-based, but the data of your customers. So when I go into planning, one of the things you should always keep your eyes open to is the gaps in your challenges in doing your day-to-day job, being your job description. If you're finding things to be difficult, then there's an opportunity for you there. And the opportunity is, do I want to go off and spend some time being innovative to think about ways that I can improve the processes or the challenges that I'm working on? And it doesn't need to be high tech. It could be everyday HR problems that you're going through. Look at the challenges, put together a business case or a planning session on ways and routes that you think you can improve this, and then present it to your tribe. Present it to your management team to say, look, this is something I've done in my spare time. These are blockages that I'm coming up against, and here are routes and paths that I think that we could do to improve them. Now, even if the business doesn't buy into what you're saying, what they are going to pick up on is this is somebody who is taking thoughts and ideas out of their job description and wanting to improve the business overall. Once you've done that business case, ask the question, right? Just as Elsie said, look, that was a great job I did. What do I need to do next in order for me to move up or for me to be able to present this to someone more senior who could impact the role that I have today? So I would say data, always look at data, look at planning, and try and be innovative in your spare time.
Thank you. For me, it's also about who's done that job before. Look around you. Who's doing that job today and who's done it way ahead of time? And then you also need to look at who are the other people who could potentially be your competitor for that role, because they're the ones that you need to make sure that you're ready for. So for me, it's about understanding the landscape of where you want to get to. Who is going to be your trusted advisors to help you? I have been in the city for over 40 years. And what I'm going to say is people who are in my life when I started my career are in my life now. It is a two-way thing. I help them and they help me. I never, ever, as old as I am now, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am, move from a job, even internally or externally, without picking up the telephone to one of them. Now, I'm going to be very explicit. As black people and as black women, we're caught up into this don't tell nobody your business, right? And yet still, we expect, when we don't tell anybody our business, we expect to get help. How are you going to get help and to prepare for those things if you don't tell anybody your business? So I want you to think about that, because it's ingrained in all of us, right? If I said to you, how much do you earn? You'd look at me like that, right? I'm a headhunter. That's my job to ask you how much you earn, so that I can make sure that whatever you go to earn in your next job is representative of your value. So don't squinch and say, I don't want to say anything. If I have a dinner and I invite you to a dinner, I'm going to ask you to send me your bio in advance. Put your hands up. How many of you have got bios? It's not enough. By lunchtime, I want all of you to commit to having a bio. It's a very short version, snapshot of what you're about. If you don't know how to do it, look at the bios of all these ladies that are in the booklet. Copy some of the words. Obviously, don't copy the jobs. But look at how they've written them. You need a bio. I'm hosting a dinner tonight, and I asked all the ladies to provide their bios. One of the ladies came back and said, why? Not to me, to my EA. I said, just go back and tell her that everybody is providing their bios. Do you know that thing about ask your business, don't want anyone to know your business? Then she said, well, my EA said to her, well, actually, what will happen? We'll just go on Google and get the information. No, I don't want you to do that. Defensiveness. Okay, then the next point is, and she said to me, why do I have to have my bio? I said, shall I be really direct and say, if you don't provide your bio, you're not coming? But I thought I won't do that. I'll keep the Jamaican side out of me and be clear. And I just went back and said, all of our guests, at the level that they are, will all have bios and will provide bios. Now, part of that is so that everybody knows who's in the room, so you haven't got to try and work out who you were speaking to. Two, it helps to increase your network. So I'm going to end by saying, you need a bio. You need to get that question out of your head about, I don't want to tell anybody my business, because you can't ask for help if you don't. My very first job that I had, where I actually went onto rather than a salary, but a package, was because I sat down with somebody and she told me what I needed to ask for. So when I was leaving a Japanese bank and going to work for IBM. And many of you will remember years ago when you went from, if you were going to get a company car, we don't have company cars now, we take the money, but if you're going to get a company car, you needed to make sure that you built in enough for what? The accountants in the room? The tax element, right? Many of us were quick to probably take another £5,000 and say, I'm really happy, and we're getting a nice company car, and £6,000 of your money was taken straight away in tax, because you didn't tell anybody your business. You didn't have a trusted person that you could sit down with and say, for this kind of job, what should I be looking at? Last year, when I moved into my new role, I did exactly that again. I'm a bit more astute now, I know what my value is, but then I talk to white women, I talk to black women, those that are in my trusted circle, so they can say, Heather, that's what you should be earning to do that, that, and that. Right? So there are no surprises. And so when we think about our careers and the next job, and even internally, when you're working in an organization, as a former head of HR, you will know that unless people ask, you're not going to offer them the salary that they deserve for the job. And when they ask, they show you how driven and determined they are and how focused they are. And then you start thinking, if that person knows their value, they're definitely going to provide value to us as an organization. So a bit of homework for you to think about during the lunch. Apart from the 10 people you need to network, look at the bios of all of the speakers.
So just to go back to the promotion question, I guess I'll talk a little bit about my own journey. So I think the first thing for me was really just ensuring that I believed I was due for that promotion. So I became the first black female managing director in EMEA for engineering at Goldman Sachs last year. And for me, so I'd never seen it before, but I knew that I wanted to go for that next step. I knew that I was doing the work and I should be going for it. So I had to have that self-belief initially. The second point, which has been echoed across the group, is make sure you tell someone about it. So I told, the then head of EMEA, who was another female, head of EMEA technology, that was my aspiration at the beginning of 2022, before a lot of, the Black Lives Matter focus and so on. And she was like, well, great, thanks for letting me know. Because if you hadn't told me, I would have, not assumed that you wanted to do it. So it's so important that you talk to people and you tell them your aspirations, as been mentioned previously. And if you're doing a good job, they will then support you and help you as part of that journey. The next thing for me was really coming out of my comfort zone. I am, again, a natural introvert. I don't like speaking in public. I hate it, in fact, but I'm doing it. I push myself out there. made sure I made those connections and make sure that I'm actually doing things to be visible. I think the other thing was really understanding the organization and the processes. So, for example, if I'm going for a promotion, I can speak to my manager, but for a managing director promotion, he is not the person that's going to be holding the cards or actually making that decision. He can support me, so he's important, but actually it's the partners and it's the senior sponsors of the firm that actually make that decision. So I need to know that in order to make sure I've built those stakeholder relationships. Obviously need to be doing a good job for my manager, but know who those key people are, the people that actually are going to be important, actually pivotal in you making that next step, and then know also who are the people that hold the pen when it comes to your compensation. Again, you may think that's your manager. A lot of the time, it isn't. So just knowing that will empower you, make sure that you make the right decisions as you go through your journey. And I think that was all I wanted to say on this point, but yeah.
Love that. Really excellent answers there. Thank you so much. I think it's so true about having to get out of your comfort zone and actually tell people what you're doing. I think we're so conditioned to keep that inside and think that maybe we're bragging, but yeah, people have got to know what you're doing. So I'm going to move on to another question, which is about hybrid and remote working. So obviously, it was always quite prevalent in the tech industry, but with the pandemic, that has become, it's spread to many more industries now. It's become a lot more commonplace. When it comes to, hybrid and remote working, sometimes out of sight can mean out of mind. So how would you recommend that people raise their profile and their credibility if they're working in a hybrid or completely remote role? And let's start at the end with Claire this time.
Yeah, sure. I think we all went through it during the pandemic, right? And so it was really difficult, and especially I think for certain communities where we tend to be less extrovert or we're quieter potentially. We like to get our head down and do the work. For me, it was really about finding the opportunities and the avenues to make sure that I could be visible in front of the right people at the right times. So whether or not it was a project that I was working on, and ensuring that I wanted to be front and center of that project, because I know that the partners in EMEA really care about this initiative, and therefore it makes sense for me to ensure that I'm at the meetings, I'm doing presentations, I'm actually part of the conversation. Putting yourself forward in places, again, that you wouldn't necessarily be doing that. So speaking with regulators, for example, which was something I'd never done previously, I kind of put my hand up to do that as part of the project that I've been working on, because I wanted to ensure that I had that right level of exposure and visibility. The second thing I did was look at opportunities outside of my day job. So things like, being in the book, Voices in the Shadow, was a massive thing. Philivilla was great. She has been promoting me on LinkedIn, the book on LinkedIn. I built a lot of networks as a result of just being part of that book. I also co-head the Black Engineers Network, which I've talked about. And so I find a lot of opportunity as a result of that to be front and center, be part of a broader community working with a different set of stakeholders at the firm, but also making sure that I'm visible. But I've been doing that for years. So, when George Floyd happened and the Black Lives Matter movement came about, I've been part of Black networks for like 6-7 years before. So it wasn't kind of using that tragic situation, but it was people recognize that we've been doing the work for a number of years. So actually now is the time that we had the opportunity to speak about the experience. And so if you can do that and also make sure that you're leveraging your community, sharing the stories of your community, sharing your own story as well, I think that's a great way of finding visibility. So again, just look for the opportunities that you have in order to make yourself more visible when you're working from home.
Thank you. This is one of my favourite topics because 3 years ago, everybody was working from their office. And then 2 years later, nobody went to the office. Everybody had to work in front of their laptops, in their kitchens, in their bedroom, in the bathroom, in all kind of places, and guess what? All the work that you had to do got done, and more so. And those that had children and people they were caring for had to do that in the background as well. I can't imagine what it would have been like having to teach children to read a book, especially in a West Indian home, whilst you're having to do your work, is all I'm going to say. But that's what we had to do. So organisations can't say you cannot do the job if you're not in the office, because you've all done the job, and we've all made our organisations lots of money. The other thing that you have to take responsibility for, and I like stories because I think they resonate with us, is I did a call last year with some senior leaders in a firm, is all I'm going to say, black senior leaders. Not one of them came on the camera. Not one. So I went, hello, is anybody there? I said, I tell you what, if you don't all put your cameras on, I'm coming off. Right? I'm coming off. How can anybody communicate with somebody if you haven't got your camera on? And if you want to be considered for promotion, whether your hair is in plaits or your hair is whatever, you can still do it. I don't know if any of you ever watched Judy Love, but Judy Love came on TV one day with her hair in 4 doo-doo plaits, right? And then during the break, she put her wig on and she came back. And we might laugh at that, but there's power in that, right? Because what she said is it was important for me to be on the TV. And so I did it. So you need to be present. Put yourself on the screen. And the other thing I want to say is ask a question. Think of the question. Think of who's going to be on that call. Ask a question. The one way that you always get remembered is for the person who asks the question. And even if it's a difficult question, just make sure it's not a stupid question. Okay? Make sure it's something that's linked to the business or something that's related to somebody in that's going to be of interest to them. It's really important that you do that. My final point is, I know we're not always comfortable about putting our hands up or speaking, but we need to get comfortable with it, right? Practice looking in the mirror sometimes, because I'm telling you, the last couple of weeks where I've been meeting people, they have looked much taller, much shorter, much fatter, completely different to what I see when they're on a little screen. So if it's about how you feel and being confident, then make sure when you look confident, you will be confident in something, and make sure that people can see who you are. Smile. You've got nice teeth, smile. People like to engage with people that they're smiling with, and senior people do as well. Next time you get in the lift and you see somebody, just smile and say good morning. I know it's really hard, particularly in the UK, because it's not natural for us, but just do it. The fact that it's not natural, they'll look at you like they're mad, then they'll say good morning back. That person you might say good morning back to could be the next person that when your name is being discussed about a potential role, is the person that remembers you from that.
Thanks, Eva. So I think there's 2 comments I'd like to make here. So firstly, in line with the hybrid and remote working, which is clearly my field. Although a lot of people in this room may have only been using video and Zoom or Teams in the last 2 years, I've actually been in the industry, particularly for UCAS, which is UC as a service, for 14 years. So I've been working from home for 14 years. I think that the greatest shift for me was a few years ago, if there was my children in the background making noise, I was always pressing mute. Whereas now it's commonplace to have the video on and have my children running in the background. We've become accustomed to that home work-life balance. Now, how I would bridge the opportunity for being more visible and promoting in the workplace is networking. And what I mean by networking, I remember when I first started at Zoom, and all of our calls obviously were via video. My boss made a comment about 4 weeks into the position saying you're being spoken quite a bit in the hallways. Obviously, the hallways are virtual. And what he meant by that is I made an effort coming into the organisation to personally set a Zoom meeting with every senior stakeholder within the business, regardless of it just being my team, being channel. I wanted to speak to the management teams in engineering. I wanted to speak to the head of SEs. I wanted to speak to the head of marketing. I wanted to understand all of their businesses and how it applies to what I'm doing. And what that was doing is, again, it was showing awareness and the opportunity of somebody new coming in whose name they didn't know, who are now having a separate meeting saying, have you guys met Zuleika yet? So that's something which you could do. It shows, again, that keyword innovation, right? It doesn't need to be you building something. It could well be a communication standpoint. So if you go into a new business and you're looking at that home or hybrid environment, it's very easy for you to get wider visibility within a business in making the effort to book yourself into 10, 15-minute meetings once a quarter, which is once every 3 months, just to say, how was your quarter? Is there anything that my team or my division could have done to aid you in your progression? And what you're doing is you're building on that. The second thing is visibility, and it comes back to the point Heather made about when you meet people in person. Now, I remember being in my 20s, and it was when I was working at Cisco Systems, and I thought I'm the top performing person across Northern Europe, but I also made very little effort when I went into office because I was so good at my job and I was the best in my team. Wearing a tracksuit and trainers to come in and work in the office, that was okay. I'm being paid the most here. And I remember a manager pulled me aside and he said, what will set you back from being promoted, which you should be as the most accomplished person in your team, is you look like you make no effort to that you want to do this job. You know, I was waking up 15 minutes before I need to be in the office and just tying up my loose curls. So one of the things I would say, even if you're only going into office once every few months, start to look the part that you want to be, right? Once you start to get to a certain level, for me, I can go into office wearing trainers quite easily because I'm the manager of the team and I'm comfortable where I am now. But if somebody in my team was making a limited effort to how they want to come in, I would subconsciously think, how serious are you about wanting to move up within the business? Anybody walking into this room now, and if you were unaware who Flavilla was, you'd see that dress and those green shoes, and you'll say, this is her event, right? She is very present and dominant as this is my event. So I would say hybrid, if you're working from home, from a hybrid perspective, make the effort to engage with all members of the team, all senior stakeholders, so they know your name, they know you're interested in the company, and it could well improve your day-to-day processes as well. And the second thing is, but be, from an appearance standpoint, be who you want to be, right? If you want to start being looked at as somebody who can potentially be an emerging leader, start to be that emerging leader. We can still in 2022 wear trainers, but, you know, tracksuits, no. Make an effort of your hair, wear a blazer with those trainers, but start to be and look and present yourself as the person that you want to be in the next 2 years.
I'm so sorry, ladies. We're being told to wrap it up, but I do want to give you just 30 seconds if you can say it.
I mean, they've said it all, really. I will only reiterate, certainly from my experience, I cannot emphasize the power of having the camera on. It will be interesting to see what the statistics are for the black women who join calls with or without camera on. And the reason why I say this is when I have a call at work and it's at 8 o'clock in the morning, I find when I join the call, my fellow black women they don't have their camera on. But the non-black women, or even the men, doesn't matter the race, they're always ready, don't have the camera on. I started to notice this and I thought, I've got to make an effort. Amazon is a techie place, and so you don't have to be suited like most tech places. You can wear a hoodie. It's relaxed. But that camera on, that eye contact, that human element, I cannot emphasize it. When I interviewed at Amazon, my button, I just had a baby. My tummy was still very big. I think my baby must have been 2 weeks old, so I could only button my top to the first 3. Everything else was just out, but I only had to put my camera up here. And I was asked, and I was told during the interview, you don't have to have your camera on, it's entirely up to you. And I thought, no, I'm going to have my camera on. And that made an impact. We were able to joke. I knew the cue to stop speaking. I knew the cue when to interject. It just flowed. So I have to say camera on. I know we're out of time, but this is so important. If you can, send follow-up emails. Don't just end there. It was lovely catching up with you. That call was really powerful. I'd like to set up a follow-up meeting. And also, meetings do not have to be about a project. We're not coming into the office, so we're not getting those lunch breaks, those networking sandwiches. If you can, have a virtual coffee. And it doesn't have to be an hour or half an hour. It can actually be 11 minutes. It's okay. The calendar will let you set that. I do that regularly, so I think that will be the tip I would leave you with, given the time.
Thank you so much, ladies. I could talk to you for hours about this. Some really, really excellent answers. Thank you so much. Give them another round of applause for these fantastic women.